Hello guys and welcome to my second lesson on quadratics. Today we're looking at completing the square, which is another way of solving quadratic equations. So I think this is slightly more harder than factorising. Hopefully you will have seen this at GCSE. We're just going to extend our understanding of it for AS level, and we'll be looking at how we can apply it in future videos. The format of this lesson, so we're going to have 5 questions taken from an AQA textbook, the latest version, and we're just going to go through it that way because I think this is the best way to learn how we complete the square. Okay, the more practice we get at it, the better we'll get. I think actually going through a step-by-step instruction method with this isn't going to be that helpful. So all I'm going to do is go through examples. In the first one I'll show you how we do it, and in the next ones you can have a go yourself if you choose. So the first question says, rewrite x squared plus 6x plus 3 by completing the square. So the format of a completing the square question, we have one bracket and we write x plus, now we halve the coefficient of x, okay? Not the coefficient of x squared and not the constant, we halve the coefficient of x. In this case that's 6. If we halve 6 we get 3. And we square this. Now we have to think what happens if we expand the brackets. If we expand this we get x squared plus 3x plus 3x, that's plus 6x. But 3 multiplied by the 3 will give us 9. And we need 3. So we have to minus 9 and then we have to add 3 on the end. Because we'd get positive 9, so we're subtracting that 9 and adding the 3 on the end. So what we get is x plus 3 squared. Now minus 9 plus 3 gives us minus 6. And there's our answer. Okay? So we find out what we get when we multiply the two constant terms inside the bracket. So when we multiply 3 by 3 we get 9. So we subtract that 9. And then we add the 3 from the question. So that's how we do it. Another way to think about it might be, how do we get to 3 from 9? Okay, because we get 9 when we expand this and we need 3. We minus 6. So that's just another way of thinking of it. And here's our answer. We could then go on to solve this, but the question doesn't ask for that. It just asks us to rewrite it in completed the square form, as these 4 do also. This question on the end, however, asks us to solve an equation. So here we're going to actually go through a more detailed explanation of how we'd obtain an answer from this. So if you want to have a go at this question, you can do a similar format to this. However, we're going to get a more difficult example with when we halve our coefficient of x. So if you want to have a go, pause the video and have a go yourselves, and I'll go straight through it afterwards. Okay guys, hopefully you've had a go at home. So with this, same format, however we're now going to get x minus, now we have to halve 5. And that's going to give us 2.5, but it's going to be very difficult to expand it without a calculator, which are not allowed in a Core 1 exam. So we're going to write this in a fraction form, minus 5 over 2, okay? We're dividing this 5 by 2. Then we square it, okay? And then we subtract our answer to this, and then we subtract the 1 from it. The reason I'm writing this is because we don't know what this squared is yet. We're going to work that out, okay? So now let's square this 5 over 2. Now the two negatives are going to cancel, we're going to get a positive. So 5 multiplied by 5 is 25, 2 multiplied by 2 is 4. So our answer is 25 divided by 4, positive. So we're subtracting this. So we can now write 25 over 4 in this space. So we now need to do minus 25 divided by 4 minus 1. Now 1 can be rewritten as 4 over 4 so that we can easily subtract these fractions. And if we do that, we're going to get Minus 25 minus 4 is minus 29 divided by 4. So here's our answer, minus 29 over 4. So we can rewrite the answer as x minus 5 over 2 squared minus 29 divided by 4. So there's our answer to the second question. Now if we were to move on to this third one, again, you can pause the video and have a go, but here we actually have a coefficient of x squared that is greater than 1. So this is going to be slightly more difficult than the previous example. So this is how we do this sort of question. We need to take a factor of 2 out of this. So we now need to also halve this value and then halve it again. Because when we complete the square, we halve the value of the coefficient of x, which in this case will be 1.5. However, we then need to take out a factor of 2 in this. So we need to halve this as usual, and then we need to divide by 2, so that when it's multiplied by 2, we get it in the form when we complete the square. So we're actually dividing by 2, and then we're doing the normal completed the square version. So we're actually going to get 3 divided by 4, okay? Once again, we're going to have to work out this value here. So what we do is we expand this. So we know we're going to get 2x squared and we know we're going to get 3x now, but we need to see what we get here. Well, 3 over 4 squared, first of all, will give us 9 over 16. Okay? And then we're multiplying this by 2. You can think of this as 2 over 1 if that helps to multiply the fractions, because we have to multiply it by the number outside of the brackets when we expand. So it's slightly more different to these examples. We're taking a factor of 2 out, halving as usual, so it's going to become 3 over 4. We're just thinking halve this and halve it again. We halve 3, we get 1.5. We halve 1.5, we get 3 over 4. Then we're expanding the brackets as usual, but don't forget to multiply by 2. So what we get here is 18 divided by 16. And if you want to simplify that, you can. That would become 9 over 8, dividing both by 2. And then we're subtracting this here. So this becomes 9 over 8, okay? Now, if we were to do this calculation, we're going to get, so let's show what this value is going to be. Well, minus 9 over 8 minus, well, 5 can become 5 over 1. And if we multiply that by 8, we get something divided by 8. So minus 5 over 1 can become minus 40 over 8, okay? Because 40 divided by 8 is indeed 5. If we do this, we then get minus 49 over 8. Okay? So, our answer to this question would be this. 2 multiplied by x plus 3 quarters squared minus 49 over 8. There's our answer to this question. So hopefully you've followed the steps to what we've done here. Now let's move on to this example. If you want to have a go at home, you can do. Here we have a negative value of x squared, which makes it slightly more difficult, but we don't have a coefficient of x squared higher than 1. So let's go through this question. We're going to have to make this a negative. So the first thing we do is put a negative sign outside of our bracket, which we use to complete the square. Now, minus 4x would become x plus 2. Now you've got to remember this is going to be become a plus 2 because we're doing a positive number multiplied by the negative outside the brackets to give us the minus 4x. So inside the bracket it has to be a positive. If it was a negative, we would get a negative and a negative, which will give us a positive. So, completing this, we need to find this value. So what we do here is we expand these brackets. Now 2 squared gives us 4. Okay, so we're going to get the x squared, we're going to get the minus 4x, but 2 squared would give us 4. However, we're actually going to get minus 4, because although 2 multiplied by 2 would give us positive 4, we have a negative outside the brackets, so it's going to become a negative 4. So we're going to get plus 4 plus 3. Okay? So this is the point where you can't get confused with the positives and the negatives. Of course we're going to get 2 squared, which is 4, but it's going to be negative, which is minus 4. However, we write this as the opposite. We write it as plus 4, just like we have done here. Just to go back to this example to show you what we're doing, we're going to get 3 multiplied by 3, which is positive 9. However, we subtract this 9, okay? You have to remember we change whatever the value is, the positive, to a negative when we write it outside the brackets. So we're subtracting that 9 because we get a positive here. Just like here, we're going to get 2 squared, which is 4, but it's going to be a negative 4. Okay? So we're making it a positive. We have to reverse it. So we can now write this plus 4 plus 3 is plus 7. So that, guys, is our answer to this question. All we're doing is writing the negative. So you've got to be careful with this negative outside the brackets because we do have to take it into consideration. Now with the last question. Again, this is slightly different. Actually, we're solving here. So when we solve, we have to go one step further than what we have here. So again, we're looking at this question here. It's the same question, okay? But we're solving it now. So remember what we did. Minus x plus 2 squared plus 3. This value here was actually a plus 4, we found out. So we got, okay, this was our answer, okay? Now when we actually solve a complete the square question, what we have to do is move this over to the other side of the equal sign. We've got to remember this is going to be equal to 0. Okay, so we get minus x plus 2 squared equals, now this positive 7 is going to move across to become a minus 7. Now, the next thing we do here from this point is square root both sides. As you can see, this bracket is squared. So if we undo it by square rooting both sides, then we could get an answer for x. However, you might be thinking, well, this is a minus 7, we can't square root a negative. Okay, because we can't square root negative numbers. In future lessons, in future videos, we'll be looking at how we can actually square root negative numbers to get numbers with i's following them. So that's complex numbers, but that's for future videos. Here, for Core 1, we're not expected to know about complex numbers. However, we've actually got a negative here as well. So if we've got negatives on both sides, we can actually just reverse them. We can change this to a positive and change this to a positive. If we're doing the same to both sides, then it's acceptable to reverse the signs. Okay? So this negative 7 becomes a positive 7, and this negative x plus 2 squared becomes a positive x plus 2 squared. And now we can actually solve this. Square rooting both sides, we get x plus 2 equals the square root of 7. Now we're going to leave it in this form. This is called a surd. Okay? We'll be looking at surds in later videos. All this means is that this will become a number that's more complex than this form. So we leave it in this simplified form of root 7. Okay? And now we can solve for x, moving the negative 2 over. So x equals minus 2, and remember, root 7 will have a positive value and a negative value. Whenever we root a number, we get 2 possible values. So if we were to square root 4, the answer would be 2. 2 squared is 4. And minus 2, because minus 2 squared is also 4. Okay? So we're going to get a positive and a negative answer. So when we move the positive 2 across, we get x is minus 2 plus and minus root 7. Because we're going to get a positive and negative value. And that's the answer. We leave it in this form. This is the simplified answer to the question. Okay? We could write this as x equals minus 2 plus root 7, or x equals minus 2 minus root 7. But that just means the same thing, and either will be accepted by an exam board. Okay? So that's the lesson on completing the square. Hopefully you understood exactly what we were doing there. It is better to go through examples set by the exam board, in my opinion, so you can see what's going on after a few examples. We just need to be careful when looking back at this idea of using the reverse of what answer we get. So if we got a positive 9, we'd subtract 9. If we got a negative 9, we would add the 9. Okay? So it's just understanding exactly what's going on there. So thanks a lot for watching that video. I understand it's not easy to pick up straight away. You might need to go through some more examples. If you do have any comments, please put one below and I'll try and answer them as quick as possible. If you did find the video helpful, then please subscribe to my channel. And then the next video will be going on over the third lesson on quadratics, where we'll be looking at the quadratic formula, which hopefully you will also have seen from GCSE. So thanks a lot, guys, and I'll see you in lesson 3.